You know what I've never done on this channel? Stop motion. Now that's not to say I've never tried it. Look at this thing I made. I made that as a kid, but hopefully I've improved since then. So I'm gonna make a little stop motion short film with no real plans except involving Rubik's cubes. I'm the man without a plan. So come along for the ride. After pondering what I was gonna do and how I was gonna do it, I figured out this setup the next day. Since I want consistent lighting, it's best to shoot with the curtains closed and preferably at night. I cleared my desk and used this small light shining directly on it, which is just the light I use for my normal filming. The time-lapse camera was a bit tricky. I was using my newer camera for taking the photos, as well as my only tripod. So I plonked my camcorder on this hoodie draped over my desk chair, which is only a little precarious. Here's the setup, and here are some of my props. But what am I actually making? Well, if you're looking for plot, you've come to the wrong place. We're starting with a 3x3 Rubik's Cube walking into frame. You may notice I'm doing it backwards, and that's because it's easier to start where you want to end up than walk it in and hope you land nicely in the center. That said, I forgot to mark where it was and had to guess when I put it back for the next part. It turned out okay. Now I'm making it do a little spin. I'm misaligning the layers as I go to make it more chaotic. Then I bring in a 4x4 in roughly the same position I left off, and continuing the spin so it'll look like it transforms. I played around with the 4x4 a bit, and then had to transform it into a 5x5. You may see a trend here. Now, I wanted it to jump, and since I can't levitate things, I came up with a different plan. There needed to be something underneath the cube that props it up while being invisible to the camera. So I used this folded up piece of paper and a camera lens to lift the cube to different heights. Once the 4x4 reaches the top, I replace it with a 5x5 to hopefully get a seamless transition. Then I made it do a couple of moves before rotating to its front. Next up was making a piece pop out. I took a photo of an edge piece detached from the cube but barely hanging on. Then right on the table but resting against the cube still. I had it slide back and then charge at the cube, which is where the switch to a 6x6 comes in. There's a red line that moves back which helps sell the transition and impact. After rolling the edge piece away, I wanted to do something more interesting with the cube. So I had a yellow dot come in and form a square. It's a bit tedious doing all these moves to change one piece at a time, but nothing crazy. For the next transformation, I made the same pattern on a 7x7. Spoiler alert, that is the biggest cube in this video. But I did some things with that before turning it into 100 3x3s. Yes, 100 3x3s. Which is just something I have. Don't question it. Phase 1 is putting all of them on the desk with white facing up, except I need 4 red ones in the middle for the transition. Then I'll have that dot kind of shoot out into the corners. I also made a little blue line move inside the cubes, with some camera movements. The next thing on the list was a Stickman animation, which needed a bit of prep. So I've got this walk sequence coming up, but first I have to animate it on paper. I don't know how long it's been since I've tried something like that, but I think I'll be fine. Let's get started. I first sketched out each frame with a walk cycle with a pen. It was only 4 drawings because I'm using a low frame rate for the most part. Once that was done, I went over them with a red marker. I initially double-sided and only used 2 pieces of paper for the 4 frames, but I realized the red shows through, so it had to be 4. Now, the goal was to have a Stickman appear and walk from the paper to the cubes and through the other side. It's a short sequence that's much harder than it looks. I made a 10x10 grid of 3x3 squares in Adobe Animate and planned out the animation in there using pixel art. With everything set up, I just needed to make the paper appear before filming the walk. This was another thing done in reverse. I put the paper in place, then crumpled it up slowly and used some smaller torn up paper to make it look like it materialized from nothing. Then I placed each drawing on the desk one by one, moving closer to the cubes and eventually underneath them. Next, I had 10 of the most time-consuming frames I've ever created. I had to solve each cube into a specific red-white pattern, going back and forth between my laptop and a sea of 3x3s. You might think I could just move part of it along by shifting a pack of cubes, but that's not possible because it's not moving a full cube at a time. Like the right of the head, for example. Here it's partially on the bottom right of one cube and top right of the one under it. Then it's fully on one cube on the next frame, and then something different on the next. I was able to save some time though by subbing in different cubes and reusing patterns, because I actually have 50 spares. Anyway, I was eventually done with that after 2 hours, and there was one sequence left. I placed a cube roughly in the middle with blue facing up and had my hand squash it in to reveal a bomb. It's going to count down from 3 and explode. Then I'll move all the cubes out bit by bit to leave a clear desk, which means the whole thing can potentially loop. Okay, I just finished shooting photos for the stop motion, which is a relief, but now I have to edit it, add sound effects and things. Then I have to edit this video. Post-production involved some speed changes, cutting, and mild effects. but in essence it's just a big sequence of photos. So after adding in all the sound effects, here's my silly stop motion cube chronicle. So I think I did reasonably well. It's quite choppy and disjointed in places, and the exposure went crazy for a frame or two, but it works. I've learned a lot about what to do and what not to do just by making this, and how long certain things take. I'll probably try stop motion again at some point. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, have a nice week, and I will see you in the next one.